Hi guys, let's put together a card. This card has taken 15 different turns since I originally thought, I think I'll make a card today. I can't be the only person that does that. I'm starting out with an A2 size card base. Well, I said I am. I can't even open it. Ain't that something? 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. It's a heavyweight cardstock. I really like this one. I don't know if you guys can see the shimmer on it, but it also has a texture. It's by Basil, and I absolutely love it. They make fantastic cardstock, in my opinion. Then I have two mats that go on the outside. The first one's cut at 4 by 5 1/4, and the second one's cut at 3 3/4 by 5. And then I was going to use kind of this teal green color, but then I remembered that I had this little doodlebug little set. It has ribbons and it has brads, and then it has these little flowers and some buttons and then some gems. It's got two different sizes of brads actually, but I pulled out the blue and I wanted a yellow brad on it. Why yellow? I don't know. Today was the day. So I went ahead and took out the yellow one and put the teal brad on it. I thought, well, I don't have any other yellow on this card. Do you see how I spiral? So I got out some rectangle dies and I cut out a bright yellow to go with my bright yellow flower, and a white, which I'm going to stamp Thanks on from a Thanks stamp set. It's by Simon Says Stamp. It's just a bunch of different thanks and a bunch of smaller sentiments. Okay, so I have a bow die as well, and from this is Graphic 45 cardstock here, and so is this blue and white polka dot, and I thought about doing the tails for this in the same pattern, but I thought, no, that's too much, so I'll just do like a paler blue, and then I added a little pearl to the center. Those are so easy. But then I thought, okay, now wait a minute. If I follow the rule of 3, which I typically don't do that, I typically look at it and say, okay, do I like this, do I not like this, and that's what I go off of. I don't go off of some rule that somebody that I don't know created. You know what I mean? However, if I were to do that today, I didn't have another small teal flower or yellow flower. This guy's going to go in the middle, and I really do kind of want to use this bow, probably in the middle. I don't know. But I did have this white flower that's the same type of material as the little yellow and the little teal. And this one has the teal gem in it. Now, while it's white on white, in person you can see the difference. You can see that it's three-dimensional. I'm also going to use one of these little heart gems, and I'm going to, once I stamp my sentiment and I put these two together, I'm going to pop this up on foam, and I may do 2 layers of foam. That way it'll kind of protect my bow. It's going to get squished a little bit in the mail, but what do you do? So I think the first thing I want to do is glue these two pieces together so I can poke holes in them so that I can hide the little legs of the brad. I don't know why I refer to them as legs, I just do. So I've told you guys that my husband started playing cornhole. And, most people know what that is. There's probably a few that in the world that don't. It's wooden boards that have a hole cut out up toward the top of them, and they're kind of angled up so that they sit at an angle. And then you throw bags that originally were filled with corn, hence the name cornhole, into the hole. That's the gist of the game. And you score as many points as you can. So he started doing that, which he's been playing in tournaments, and I think probably by this time next year he will go pro. But he has impeccable aim, better than anything I've ever seen. And I don't say that just because he's my husband, because he knows I'll tell him the truth no matter what. I have more of this teal down toward the bottom, so I'm going to put that down toward the bottom instead of up top, because this is going to have this up here, since I didn't get it evenly spaced and I don't want to cut it down. This is how my brain works. It's a scary place sometimes. Where do I want this? Let's see. We'll just put it wherever and then work around it. How's that sound? Anyway, he used to race dirt cars. He did that when he and I got together, and he had done it for years before that, and did it for several years after we got together. And I'm telling you all this for a reason. One, because I talk while I make cards, and I'm sorry if there are people here that don't like to hear a bunch of talking. I guess you could put me on mute, since I've given you all my sizes and everything. Pretty standard. Anyway, he used to race dirt cars, and there are these smaller dirt cars that are called sprint cars. They have wingless sprints, and then they have the winged sprints. And originally they did not have a wing on them, but because they're so lightweight, they go airborne real easy. So they started putting these wings on them to keep them down on the ground. Well, they don't always keep them down on the ground, because these cars are crazy fast. Crazy fast. My husband used to drive, well, he drove a pro stock one year, street stock, and he's also driven factory stocks and modifieds. And I know that sounds like gibberish to a lot of people. It did me too when he and I got together. And sometimes still I get, I don't know, a little cloudy-headed listening to it. But anyway, after watching the sprint cars and how fast they are and how easily they flip, and they don't just flip once, they barrel roll, so they're dangerous. And I guess that's part of the, the fun for them guys, is the risk. Sounds silly, but, it's adrenaline. At any rate, after seeing how fast they were and how I see them as dangerous, and I do think they're dangerous, I said to my husband, because they're not, unlike a full-size car, the full-size car have a full-on roll cage and then it has a body all around it, and to me it's just safer in general. And they weigh more, and it's harder to get 3,000 pounds to barrel roll as opposed to 1,200 pounds. Anyway, I told him, I said, if you ever want a divorce, that's one way to get it, because my husband is 6'4", weighs 258 pounds. He's a big man, and all I could see was, oh my God, he's gotten in a wreck and broken his neck because he's so tall. So that was, I was serious. I said, if you ever want a divorce, you just crawl your butt up in one of them cars and act like you're going to drive it. Because, no, I'd love him no matter what, but why ask, basically, for that kind of trouble? Because racing full-size cars is dangerous too, because there are a lot of people out there that they're not safe, some of these people. Anyway, I say all that to say he did end up in an open wheel car once for one season, but it was for a modified, and it has more body around it and thus more roll cage. And so, I didn't have a problem with that one. And he's always wanted to drive a sprint car, not with other sprint cars on the track, just with him on the track by himself, just to play. And I would be okay with that, because I know him as a driver. It's when you throw all them other people into the mix that I don't know them. I don't know how they drive. My husband is extremely safe. So, anyway, he quit racing big cars, several years back, and he started racing RC cars, which that's an expensive hobby too. But anyway, I have an expensive hobby now, so I don't say anything about it. At any rate, sorry, I had to concentrate a minute. He still knows quite a few people that still race, and we're talking about, some of the people that are racing now would be the same age as my stepdaughter, and some of them the age of my son, and some even younger. Some of them have their grandkids out there racing, It really has become a family sport for a lot of people. At any rate, one of the guys that my husband's dad, my husband's dad had race cars. He didn't drive them. He had somebody else drive them. But Mr. Grady, Grandpa Grady, drove against my father-in-law's driver. Well, Mr. Grady had his son, and his son was about the same age as my husband, and he had a son. So his son, now we're talking the third generation of Grady here, he's 18 years old and has been racing cars and he started out in like go-karts and things like that, and he's kind of moved up into, unfortunately, sprint cars. Well, about a month ago now, 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, he had a horrible, horrible accident on the racetrack, and car was barrel rolling multiple times, and when it finally came to rest, he was extracted from the car, and he had a broken arm. His cervical vertebrae 1 and 2 were both broken. 3 was broken with a crushed spot. 4 was fine. And then his C5 was crushed. And he couldn't feel anything from his neck down. We're talking about an 18-year-old kid. My husband told me about that, and of course I immediately started saying prayers for that young man and for his family. I can't imagine what his parents are going through. But I say all that to say this. My husband played a cornhole tournament today at that same racetrack as a part of a fundraiser for that young man and his medical bills, and rehab, and hopefully one day he'll walk again. He was in and out of consciousness, and I don't know exactly what caused it, but somewhere along the lines, I think when they put the trach tube in, he ended up with a hole in his windpipe, so every time he was drinking something, it was draining into his lungs, and then he couldn't breathe, so they were having to drain fluid off of his lungs, and they were trying to figure out where it was coming from. And that's what they finally figured out, is that's what happened, is that once they did the scope and all of that, they found the tear. Anyway, he's finally starting to do better, and he can actually move his arms now and his head side to side, but he still can't feel anything from just below his chest down. As far as like, for them to tell if you can feel, that they'll take a needle or something and scrape it along the bottom of the foot, because if you feel it, you're going to pull your foot. And he hasn't been pulling away from it. He says that in his hips and thighs, it just feels numb. So the feeling of numbness is feeling nonetheless. So my husband called me, and of course I've been trying to keep up to date on this because, one, prayers are free, and two, we all need them, you know. At some point in our life, we all need a good, honest prayer. So if you're so inclined, please say a prayer for a young man with the last name Grady who is only 18. To me, it's not worth that risk. And that's what I kept telling my husband, is it's not worth the risk. And what part of it that made it worse is that this kid is taller. He's one of the taller people. And I just think tall people have no business driving those cars, because too much of a chance of getting your neck screwed up, and then next thing you know, you can't feel anything and you can't walk. And, you know, I just told my husband, that's why, right there, that's why. And, you know, at the time, he kind of thought I was being overreacting and maybe even being foolish. You know, he's never said that, but at times I thought, okay, maybe I am overreacting, maybe I am kind of not being fair here. And then, you know, I watched multiple accidents happen in those cars, and it's tragic how quickly an entire existence is altered. But they did that tournament today, and he and his partner won the tournament. And he's staying for the benefit race, because they always do like fundraising type things, like 50-50 tickets, or, you know, different drawings and things. So he called me just a little bit ago. He had seen that young man's parents, and they made an appearance. I think they felt like they had to, but I wish they hadn't felt that way, you know, because especially with my husband, there are a lot of people that have no idea about how prolific that sport is in the area that we live in, the part of the United States we live in. And I know they do it in other areas, but it's a pretty big hobby here. It's an expensive hobby, but it's a pretty big hobby nonetheless. Anyway, so my husband knows people on people on people, because he was raised around that, right? So a lot of the people that he knows are people that would have been his dad's age if his dad were still living. and then their children, whether they're male or female. So it's like a family reunion type thing for him every time he goes back to a racetrack and sees all those people. But they had a good turnout today, and that's what I was thinking is, Lord, please let them have a good turnout so that they can help this family out as much as possible, because kid is only 18. And when he told me about it, I had removed myself from the room. I don't know that family. They don't know me, but my heart hurt for that mom. Could not imagine what his parents are going through. Because, they're trying to be positive and be strong so that he remains positive. So, yeah, that's where the hubster is. But the most recent update was the one where they was figuring out why he was having fluid in his lungs. I thought, good grief, that family just can't catch a break recently. So, yeah. I asked him how the parents seemed to be holding up, and he said, well, the little bit I talked to him, it seems like whether it was either on Facebook or in person, when we've talked about it, I've asked how are the parents holding up. And so today is like, they seem to be holding up okay. I mean, given the circumstances as they are. I said, yeah. It's tragic. But it was one of those deals where his dad had raced all those years, so he grew up around it, and it was just something that he always enjoyed and always loved and wanted to be a part of that sport. I mean, kids who play football, especially in this kind of heat, every year we have, it's about this time of year, we hear about on the news another child that's died brought on by heat exhaustion because the coaches are so hard on them, they don't allow them to just whenever go get a drink. And there are kids dying from that. It's like, good grief. If people just make better choices, like those coaches in that scenario. I don't know. It just really hurt my heart for him and for his family. Even though I don't know them and they don't know me. My husband's a real good judge of character, so if he says they're good people, then they're good people. But I wouldn't wish that on anybody at all. All right. I'm debating on whether or not I want to put stitching around this, because these rectangles they're stitched rectangles. So I'm wondering if I should do some like black stitching around the edge or get out a yellow. I have those gel pens. I'm concentrating so I don't mess up again. Isn't that terrible? Gotta shut my mouth to concentrate on making dots. Silly. One thing about these gel pens, I got them from Tuesday Morning, and I really like them. However, it does take them a very long time to dry, so if you've got them, just, be mindful of that. Because they may get them in still from time to time. I don't know, I haven't shopped at Tuesday Morning in a long time. It's been a really long time since I've been in there. I guess that's a good reason for me to go, isn't it? But I haven't been in a long time. Trying to enhance the center of this white flower to make it stick out a little bit more. There. I'm going to quit messing with this and call it done. You guys let me know what you think. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. I certainly do appreciate it. I hope you all have a great day and a glorious tomorrow. Bye, guys.